Yesher Koach, Zev, thank you so much for leading us in prayer. As you step into this new stage being a bar mitzvah, not only do you lead us in prayer, but you understand that this is also a Shabbat that has other meaning as well. And being able to share your bar mitzvah day with the honoring of World AIDS Day is a real sign of understanding what it means to be part of the community. And I just want to take a moment to appreciate and honor you for that. This evening during the Ve'ahavta, we recited the words, V'shinantam levanecha. You shall teach the words of the Torah to your children. The Shema and the Ve'ahavta, the core tenets of Judaism, remind us of the importance of passing along stories, wisdom, and tradition from one generation to the next. Jewish texts are animated by the idea of the older generation teaching the younger, and we are taught to respect our elders as they are sources of wisdom and knowledge. And through this intergenerational connection, our culture lives on. But what happens if there is no generation to pass along their wisdom? What happens, what becomes of youth who grow up without role models or elders to teach them of their culture and values? What happens if an entire generation is lost? As Jews, less than a century after the Holocaust, we do not have to imagine. We know the pain of losing our elders, our culture, our music, our traditions, of having our futures stolen from us. And for LGBTQ people, or those who had LGBTQ plus friends during the 1980s and 90s, these questions weigh more recently on our minds as well. And for those that hold all of these identities, we may well wish to cry out at a world that stood by while these tragedies befell our communities. December 1st, earlier this week, was International World AIDS Day, a memorial day established in the 1980s to honor the lives of all those who died. And since the first recorded deaths in the 1980s, there have been 44.1 million AIDS-related deaths, 44.1 million lives cut short, 44.1 million lives that did not end peacefully in old age, stories that never got to be told, art that never got to be completed, songs that will remain forever unwritten, scientific research that would have to wait for another mind to conceive of it. Today, the World Health Organization estimates 40.8 million people live with HIV, and in many countries, a diagnosis is no longer a death sentence. There are global efforts to end AIDS by 2030. There are numerous drugs and treatments on the market now that can make HIV/AIDS undetectable and thus untransmittable. Public education has made incredible strides in the last 40 years. There is much to celebrate, and we no longer live in the dire and uncertain reality of the late 20th century. But there is also much to mourn and more to continue to fight for. While there is now testing and easier access to medication, the stigma against those who live with HIV/AIDS continues to this day. And with the US slashing its foreign aid programs that support AIDS healthcare and research, we know the lack of access to healthcare, medication, and increased poverty will cause that death toll to rise again. Women, adolescent girls, gay men, transgender people remain the highest at-risk groups, especially in under-resourced countries. And without focused global efforts to make up for this massive cut in funding, we are likely to see the impact of the virus rise again. As we see this backslide in access to healthcare and medication, we risk losing another generation who may not get the opportunity to live the rich and vibrant lives full of love and fulfillment that each person deserves. Their deaths will be felt in this moment by those who love them, and for years to come by the endless possibilities of their lives. All the paths they might have taken, all the good they might have done will be lost as well. Growing up in the 90s as a closeted queer young person in the shadow of the AIDS epidemic, I was taught to hate this part of myself. Like many of my generation, I was told that this virus had targeted gay people as divine punishment. Destructive conservative voices were given endless platforms to use the tragedy of the AIDS epidemic to support their bigotry and messages of hate. And with all this loss around us, the younger generation was forced to grow up in a world that had few queer elders. We did not see a future for ourselves. We did not have role models. We did not have an older generation to pass down the wisdom they had learned from years of activism and organizing, of loving and of living life in a world that stood against them. We did not get to see them grow old. We did not get to see them love. We did not get to read their poetry or sing their songs. We did not see them on TV except as a punchline or cautionary tale, and we did not learn to love ourselves in the wake of this tragedy. We grew up in a vacuum with few queer elders to guide us on our journeys. We grew up in a time where it seemed that our lives were destined to be unfinished. Artist Keith Haring, often known for his brightly colored political art, created this piece shortly before his death. And the drips of paint evoke the idea that the artist's life was interrupted mid-work, which it was, as Haring lost his life to AIDS. The generations before mine suffered the tragedy of countless loss after loss as they watched their family and friends die. The generation before me saw the end of countless potentials. How many paintings were never finished? How many songs were never composed? How many poems were never written? How many lives were simply cut short? And how can one day on the calendar possibly honor the memories and legacies of each person who was taken? No amount of scientific or social progress will return those we have lost. In the Torah, there are two sets of the Ten Commandments. The first, carved by God, are broken by Moses when he sees the Israelites worshiping the golden calf. The second set, carved by Moses, is placed in the ark and carried with the Israelites through the wilderness, eventually housed in the temple. But what of the broken tablets? According to the Midrash, the rabbinic legends, the broken pieces of the first set of commandments are placed in the ark as well, their memory honored even though they are no more. In Jewish tradition, we do not discard that which is broken. We find a way to honor it. We do not ignore the painful memories of the past, but rather let them inspire us towards action and compassion. Our ancestors understood that these tablets were part of their spiritual and cultural memory. They hold the story of a dark moment of hopelessness and loss. Today, LGBT people have a version of our own of these broken tablets, whispers of the memories of lives lost during the AIDS epidemic, their stories immortalized on fabric in AIDS quilts worldwide. And while it can be tempting to think or focus on the celebrities and well-known artists lost during the epidemic, I look at these quilts to remember all of the everyday people who lived ordinary lives that ended too soon. They were loved and cherished so dearly that someone sewed a panel in their honor. They were someone's child, parent, lover, friend. They were an entire universe, and our world is poorer in their absence from it. Today we stand at another pivotal moment. Our governments have once again found a scapegoat in the LGBTQ population and rely on our ignorance and fear to have us target our transgender siblings. We have been asked to willfully misunderstand people's identities and to let fear guide decisions. We know that when trans youth have no safe spaces to go, when they're barred from social circles, mistreated in their homes and schools, or banned from expressing themselves, there's a rise in mental health crises and suicide. The laws that target transgender people, especially those that target our youth, may lead to another crisis for the LGBTQ community. We will lose people to this onslaught of hate. All of those stories that could have been told, all of those lives that could have been lived will be lost to us, and we will see another gap in the generations. How can we memorialize one tragedy without acting to prevent another? Jewish tradition teaches us that all human beings are created in the image of God, and all humanity shares a spark of the divine creator. That includes people who are different from us. It includes people who we do not understand. This moment asks us to be brave, to do more than say we stand in solidarity, but be willing to stand up for the most vulnerable. As we honor the memories of all those lost during the AIDS crisis, and with the hope of ending this epidemic by 2030, let us ensure we are building a better world on these ashes that celebrates and supports all humanity created in the divine image. Let us build a world that has space and understanding, compassion for everyone, that denounces stigma and has no place for bigotry. Let us build a world that is truly a blessing in honor of the memory of all those we have lost. Shabbat Shalom.